Did you read the title? Did it say something like your $70 doesn't buy you cruelty?
Definitely not. I just clicked on the video by accident and I'm illiterate, so I couldn't read the title.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Geez, I wouldn't have guessed seeing that's what the title is.
The fact that you bought a game that you didn't like doesn't give you the right to be cruel or unkind to the people that developed that game.
And the fact that you made a game that people had to pay for that they didn't like doesn't make you immune from people being unkind to you. Hell, I've given food to a homeless person and he threw it back in my face one time because he actually wanted money and didn't want me to give him freaking food. Who would have thought?
Now I'm going to be clear about something. I'm not saying that you have to like the thing you bought. I'm not saying even that you aren't allowed to complain about the thing you bought. You can have whatever opinion that you feel like towards a game, even if that opinion is stupid and wrong.
So already, this is coming from a very biased place because you're claiming that people can have opinions, but you're also saying that those opinions are stupid and wrong. My question is, why did you have to add the last part? And why do you think that what you just said doesn't extend to this whole video of you also having an opinion on other people having opinions?
You are entitled to that opinion. And to some degree, you're entitled to express that opinion to the corporation, to the video game studio that created this game that you bought. You paid $70 of your own dollars for this game and it disappointed you, and you're angry about that. That is fine. You are entitled to be angry about it.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that, but I have a feeling you're gonna walk that back by the end of the video. What I'm really interested to know is what you deem as cruelty. Because people like you might see people expressing their anger about something and criticizing developers, or in your case, ex-developers, as cruel. Because I know, crazy, right? Those types of people nowadays don't like to take criticism and don't like to accept their failure in the fact that they made a bad game or a bad product that most people didn't receive well. Exhibit A. Does anyone remember this? Where the Concord developer said in response to somebody else's comment, I don't really care. It was a huge labor from a lot of insanely talented people making an awesome game. Why would I care about a bunch of talentless freaks hating on it? I'm sure having fun playing it. I wouldn't trade it for anything. To which somebody else said, talentless freaks? I actually came to drop some positive criticism, but get fucked. Clearly, based on the game, you're the one with no talent. Ooh.
And you're entitled to express that anger in certain channels. If you are mad at that Ubisoft game, be mad at Ubisoft. Express your anger to Ubisoft or to the studio that made the game.
Why does he keep looking off the camera? My OCD is killing me with that. And excuse me, we don't need you to tell us to do that, Grandpa. I bet now this whole video is going to be a lecture on how we should express ourselves in a way that fits your neat little set of rules that somehow exempts you from criticism. I'm probably getting ahead of myself, but I have a feeling that's the direction it's going in. Call me crazy.
But you cross a line when you start being cruel about it. So why am I saying you don't get to be cruel because you spent $70? Let's walk through it.
Thank God. He's finally going to tell us what cruel entails. Don't worry. I'm not going to take a clip of what you said and just spend an entire video on one little clip, because I know people hate that. Even sometimes it's warranted, but you encourage people to watch a bit of the video before pushing the thumbs down and leaving a comment. I personally have not disliked your video, as you can see here, and I didn't leave a comment because I wanted to give you a fair shake and hear what you had to say, because you must have a pretty good reason for making that kind of title. It must be something extremely cruel that people are doing, like doxing the developers, threatening their families, stalking them in the street, or slandering them and saying things that are false about them just because they're angry. It's gotta be something like that, right?
One, you shouldn't be cruel at all. What are you doing? It's a video game. You don't need to go out of your way to cause harm to other people because of a video game that you don't like.
Duh. We know that. However, if you're gonna make an argument for what cruelty is or what people are doing that deems them as cruel, I don't think you should start by saying you just shouldn't be cruel without first defining exactly what this cruelty entails. It's like if you're telling a child, hey, don't be a bad person. And the child is like, oh, okay. And it's expecting you to tell them what a bad person is. And then you say, first of all, don't be a bad person, because like, what are you doing? Why would you be a bad person? Maybe start by telling me exactly what the fuck you're talking about so we can both be on the same page here.
Again, I'm not saying you're not allowed to be angry about it. I'm not saying you don't get to express your dissatisfaction with the content of the game that you're not enjoying. But when you climb into someone's personal social media and start actively attacking that person, When you celebrate layoffs at a studio because the game that you don't like didn't do that well, you're crossing a line into being cruel. And fundamentally, you should have more grace for other human beings.
First of all, what do you deem as attacking someone? You have to be very clear about what that means, because nowadays, if you just go up and give someone or people certain facts about certain things, they're going to claim you're attacking them. There was a family member that did some awful things to me. And when I listed out those things that she did to abuse me to her face, which wasn't me attacking her, it was me crying my heart out and letting her know and confronting her about the things that she did. She apologized profusely at the moment and cried about it. But then the next day, she made excuses once again, rescinded her accountability and apology, and claimed that I had said cruel things to her. All I did was tell her exactly the things that she did to me and my siblings to hurt us. To people who are narcissists or don't want to take accountability, any form of criticism or ire towards them is seen as cruel, or it makes them feel like they're being attacked. It's not that I was making up a lie. I would have understood if I'd made up lies about her or fabricated some kind of evidence against her, but that's not what happened. However, if someone is coming out towards you and telling you that you messed up and you scammed people out of their money by telling them that they're going to get something that they didn't pay for, and they're harshly criticizing or making fun of these people for not taking their job seriously, that is very different from actively attacking someone. People like to use the word attacking, but the actual definition of the word attacking is more of a physical sense. Attacking means to take aggressive action against a place or enemy forces with weapons and armed forces, typically in some kind of battle or a war or fight. Or it means an aggressive and violent action against a person or a place. But if someone is merely criticizing someone, that doesn't feel like aggression to me. It might feel like aggression to the person who's being criticized. And if the person is very, very angry about it, let's just say, play devil's advocate and see the person is very, very angry and they got scammed out of their money. They paid $70 for something that they just did not get what they paid for. Then yes, even if they are attacking the person and being loud or passionate about their displeasure, why would that be a problem? You didn't give them what was promised. Now, the person who made the product might not have thought that they did anything wrong, or they might not have been in the mindset to remotely believe it's possible that they would be open to scrutiny, especially when you put your work or opinions in a public sphere. If a game is bad or overpriced or poorly designed, then the consumers have every right to criticize it. That's part of consumer feedback. Even mocking a bad product or a tone-deaf statement is not the same as being aggressive. Here are some examples because I think people need to make that distinction. It needs to be said. If someone says, this game is garbage and the developer made awful design choices and it looks like ass, that's criticism. If they say, wow, what a dumbass decision, they should rethink their life choices, that's mockery, not aggression. If they come out and say, the developers deserve to be harassed, doxxed, or physically harmed or unalived, or they shouldn't exist, that's where it becomes aggression, a call to action of harm or harassment. That's evil. Also, if people are saying that a game studio should be shut down because it's mismanaging its assets and basically scamming people, which is how consumers would feel if they're paying $70 for a product that's disgustingly in poor taste or very poor quality, it's important to understand that the game studio is a business. It's not a person, it's an entity. When people say that they wish the studio would be shut down or that they're happy that the studio is being shut down, they aren't calling for personal harm to developers. They're saying the business doesn't deserve to continue operating because of the failures. Just like any other industry, if a company repeatedly delivers poor products, lies to its customers, vilifies and demonizes its consumers, or mishandles the resources, people have a right to suggest it not exist anymore. Not the people, the entity, the studio. Bear in mind, this isn't the same thing as saying those individual people shouldn't exist. This is no different from saying to your friend that this company or this restaurant should be shut down because they keep serving bad food, or someone complaining that a company should go under because they're constantly scamming customers, or another person protesting and saying this government agency should be dissolved because it's corrupt and useless. If there's all this mismanagement going on, calls for it to be shut down are a rational consequence, not cruelty. To me, it's no different than those YouTube channels that place animals in genuinely harmful situations on purpose to garner views. That's one of the few times I will call for a YouTube channel to be taken down because they're actively harming animals or other people. That's different. And you know what's different? Because when those people have their channels taken down, they pop up 16 more in its place.
But if you're not buying that, let's go on to point 2. You don't know what caused the results that you don't like. Let's go through an example. Let's say that you don't like the line delivery on a piece of dialogue.
Like Dragon Age the Veilguard, something that you worked on?
Is that the fault of the voice actor? It might be, but it could be a lot of other things too. It might be the fault of the person who was directing that voice actor. Maybe they were given very specific instructions to deliver the line in this particular way.
I mean, unless the voice actor sounds like complete ass, I have yet to hear anyone blame the voice actor for a bad piece of dialogue in a game.
The writer who wrote that line wanted it delivered in this particular way, and the stage direction specified this particular line delivery. Maybe the recording equipment at the voice studio went down, and the only take they managed to get was this first one that was done just to set the tone, and they were just kind of out of time and stuck with it.
Are we being serious right now? Are you being serious? I'm gonna make him finish that thought in context.
If you go and you start attacking the voice actor for a line delivery you don't like, it might not be them at all. It might be...
Okay, so he goes on to explain that it could be the fault of the equipment, something went down, as he said, the line came out sounding funny, and blah, 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 right? You guys had actually listened to his video, but he's just giving that example and going on and on about it. Those could have all been reasons. So you don't know exactly why the line came out like that because, they were out of time. and all of that would be excusable if we were talking about a very cheap game or something, even still. But could have been excusable if we're talking about something really cheap or free. But I also feel like that's a very poor example because what do you mean they're out of time? You don't even need people to be there for them to do a voiceover. All you have to do is be like, yo, wherever you are, send us an audio of you doing that line over. Go in a closet or something in your car and do the line over. So that's a very poor example, in my opinion.
Maybe it was written this way because there was incredibly tight time pressures due to other externalities on their time. Maybe the direction of the game changed radically 3 months ago, and they had to rewrite this entire character in just 3 months. And you're just getting the first draft of that writing.
And honestly, this is where the voice of Elderly Kermit loses me. Because all of this just honestly sounds like excuses. It just sounds like you're constantly making excuses for why people put out a shitty product. At the end of the day, do you think it really matters to the consumer who paid $70 freaking for a product that came out shitty? If I pay $70 for a pair of shoes and I get those shoes and there are holes inside of them, right? Or within a week of me barely doing any walking in them, the soles start falling off. Do you think I give a flying fuck that the people who made the shoes were out of time or somebody accidentally tripped and fell onto one of those pole things that are used to hold up the stool that they sit on and the cushion wasn't there so it inadvertently fucked them? Do you think I give a flying ice cold fuck that they didn't have enough material left and had to work with what they had? If those people were to come to me and say, when I explained how shitty the product is that I paid $70 for, and tell me that I'm being cruel because I'm blaming the company and I don't really know who's to blame, because anything could have happened. It's not our fault. Like, you don't know who you're blaming. I would tell them to deep throat my middle finger. Yeah. Make it wet and sloppy, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for putting out a product valued at $70, or not valued, priced at $70. And guess what? The reason why people have an excuse to be angry, even aggressive about it, if you want to call it that, is because they spent $70 to get that product that was not worth $70, and you walked away with y'all $70. You still have the $70. You still got paid. And all your little people that got fucked by their cushionless stools got paid as well. And what are we stuck with? A rancid ass piece of product that was not worth the $70 that we barely have. So what the fuck are you complaining about? What the hell is going on in this game? Then you have the nerve to sit here and try to make excuses, because how dare we, the customers, the consumers, have an issue? Because we don't really know who to blame, so we shouldn't be blaming anyone. Is that where you're going with this? Usually what we see when there's an issue with the writing in any video game or show or movie is that people criticize the writing or the writer, and we don't give a damn if he's going through a divorce or whatever is happening. Then don't put out the fucking product. It's really that simple. Don't put out the product. And if you choose to put out that product at that time, good business sense tells you to drop the product to a lower price since you're putting out a piss poor product, or you're aware that you're cutting corners or don't have time. If you didn't have enough time to write the lines properly, which is why you hire your writers, then you need to not have the product reflect a price that coincides with a high quality product that tells a consumer that you did take all the time you needed to make a good product. Notice how other games that have good dialogue and good gameplay don't make these excuses, and they're like half the price. So what the hell are you even talking about?
And you're just getting the first draft of that writing. Maybe the lead writer wanted this character to be in a specific way, and constrained what the writer was able to do while they were writing this character. Maybe the creative director on the project had specific goals that they had in mind, and they were pushing the writing in a particular way or restricting how much leeway the writers had in order to express their vision on what the game was able to do or be. Maybe the executive producer, all of these people reporting up into the executive producer, decided that this game should be different in tone and was pushing the game in direction in a different way.
Blah, blah, blah. Again, why is that my problem? Yeah, maybe that did happen. Okay, who gives a rat sphincter? The game still came out stupid as fuck. People don't like it. Full stop. I swear to God, watch some idiot come out and try to defend this man.
Or maybe the leadership of this project changed 6 times and the direction changed 6 times, and you're getting little bits of writing from each of these different directions, and there was never adequate time to step back and
So this is a long-ass, unnecessary spiel about him saying absolutely nothing. Maybe coulda, woulda, shoulda, didn't. That's basically what he's saying. All of that random rigmarole is just to make an excuse for why people put out a shitty product. We don't care. It's not about you. It's about the product. And if you put out a shitty product, you get a shitty response, especially if people paid for it. It's really that simple. You're a little bit too old to be thinking like this. Let me see. Maybe you have a wife or a husband or a kid. Let's say your loved one goes to the hospital, right? And they're supposed to go under anesthesia, and someone accidentally, fucks that up. And the person is, like in my case, woke up during surgery while they're being fucking opened up, and you can't move because you're fucking paralyzed, and something gets fucked up. They realize a little bit too late, oh shit, you're awake, and then put you back to sleep. So now you have PTSD, or maybe they messed up something, gave you the wrong dosage for something else, and your child or your loved one is kind of fucked up now because of it. And they say to you, well, why are you screaming at the doctor? It was the anesthesiologist. Even still, you shouldn't be screaming at them because this is what the person told them they were supposed to do. It was a nurse. She didn't follow instructions. That they're giving you all this wild goose chase of who you should blame. Just blame the hospital. But when you do blame the hospital, they don't take accountability for it whatsoever. So you should just, be happy. You still have to pay this ridiculous hospital bill, and now your loved one is maimed or they're handicapped because of something that happened, and you had signed something that you didn't realize that you signed that says you're not allowed to sue if something goes wrong, and now you're angry, and have somebody come up and tell you, listen, you don't have to be cruel. You don't have to go to the CEO of the hospital or whatever and be cruel, and whatever, because you don't really know who's to blame. Let's see how well you would take that if you were in that situation. Now, yes, that is a very extreme example, but the main principle is that you paid for a service or for a product and you got dick.
Some of them not so realistic, but I've seen things that look an awful lot like all of the things I just said. So when you decided to personally attack that one specific person on social media, how certain are you that it was their fault, that they are responsible for that thing that you don't like? And I'm going to tell you right now, you shouldn't be certain because you don't know exactly what was going on within the project. You don't know the exact circumstances that resulted in that thing you didn't like. Even people who were on the project aren't always going to be absolutely certain on who is responsible for something being exactly a particular way.
So now that I've listened up to this point, which is nearly half of the video, it's clear that this guy is making excuses for someone. And look, while there is merit to what he's saying in terms of there being more than meets the eye to why a product turns out bad, and we've already established that most people know that, as I continue listening, I realize that he might be talking about what other people have an issue with in certain instances, one of those instances being consultant firms like Sweet Baby Inc., as just an example, by the way. There are a lot of people who understandably make the correlation to games coming out like ass whenever people similar to the ones that run these consultant companies who care more about people's skin color than the actual substance of the game are attached to certain games that are being made. Because crazy to think, I know, when people don't put their primary focus on the quality of the game and care more about the skin color of the person or characters, or who's sleeping with who, or what's between certain people's legs, then yeah, it's possible and even likely that the product is going to be lacking due to the focus being in the wrong place. However, if gamers see that there's a group of people who come in to work on a game and everything that they're attached to most likely flops or does badly, it's understandable for people or the consumers to draw the conclusion that it might be because of or have something to do with that group of people. I'll give you an example of how pattern recognition works. And I'm not saying it's right 100% of the time, but there's usually a reason why humans evolved to notice patterns. And just like a lot of these people and companies, they also engage in patterns. They will engage in a certain type of behavior and keep on doing that same behavior, which creates a pattern. My example is, let's say we have dogs at the dog park, and there is a dog at that dog park playing with all the other dogs. Honestly, I would never take my dog to a dog park unless I know my dog can defend itself against every other dog there, because you don't know what these people's dogs have in terms of illnesses or temperament. But anyways, let's say that there is a white dog that plays at this dog park, and he's a bully. And every time that dog goes to that dog park, there's always a fight. And 98% of the time, it's because that white dog causes the fight. People might catch it on their cameras or even on cameras that certain of the dogs wear. That white dog is always aggressive and always makes sure that there's a bad time. You even know this because if that dog park is peaceful, once that white dog gets there with its owner, all hell breaks loose. You know at least one dog is walking home with blood on their fur because of this white dog. Now let's say we go to another dog park and it's peaceful. They're like, yes, everyone's enjoying themselves. And that white dog also then arrives at that same dog park. Prior to that, there was barely any fights. And then lo and behold, we're all there. I grab my dog. People are aghast when this fight breaks out. The thing is, nobody saw whether or not the white dog was the one that started the fight. You just know that there's dogs that are bloody now, and the white dog happened to now be at the park. And it wasn't like this before. What are people gonna think? The white dog is notorious for starting shit and drawing blood from other puppies. It might not be fair to blame the white dog because we don't know for certain that it was because of the white dog, because no one happened to have cameras at that time. So the white dog could be innocent. But is it fair for people to then get upset and assume that because the white dog is hyper aggressive, more than likely it was the white dog that caused the fight? Now, I would understand if there's a very strict punishment, like the white dog being put down, and in that case, you wouldn't want to just lay the blame without any evidence because it would cost the dog its life. However, if no one is being harmed and the only thing that happens as a result is that the white dog is banned from that particular dog park, then isn't it fair for the people there to want the guy and his dog to leave and never come back? The thing is, in this hypothetical, which I'm sure has real life parallels because I've seen them, it's not like people haven't been saying over and over again, hey dude, you need to get control of your dog. Usually when something like this happens, it's a result of people saying it over and over again that the person causing them distress needs to stop or fix the issue. That's a more extreme example because actual physical harm is happening as a result of the white dog's owner's negligence. And yes, I understand that, but just keep that in mind.
And all of this isn't to say that you aren't allowed to have your own opinions, to not like the things you don't like. It's specifically to point out that you being angry at a specific person, you attacking a specific person, is often misdirected. If you feel like you're just not getting the satisfaction from yelling at the corporate Twitter channel or yelling at the studio directly, if you feel like you need to focus it down onto an actual human being, I mean, that's really sad. I'm sorry. That's very sad. And hopefully you can grow beyond that. But I will give you a couple of outlets. If you need to complain at a human being, I'm going to say you don't get to go lower than the first person in the credits. You can go higher than that, but no lower than that. The first person in the credits is the person who was, theoretically at least, in charge of the project. They are the person where at least some of the responsibility is going to lie. Now, did they have full control over what was going on in the project? No, because you could still have the CEO of the company forcing them to...
Again, more of this is just rigmarole and excuses. And then he's still trying to skirt accountability away from the person who's in charge of everything. When I was going to film school, I didn't realize how much the producer was in charge of. The teacher would give each of us a role. Director, producer, writer, whatever. As the producer, Jesus Christ, I felt like I had the hardest job out of everybody because I had to make it happen. I had to go to different venues and schedule times where we could go. I had to make sure that we had the budget. If we didn't have the budget, I had to find a way to make this work. And if they gave me the story, I had to tell them whether or not I could make that happen based on the budget that we had. I had to be the one basically behind the scenes making all of this a reality. I had no idea that's what the producer was in charge of. I used to think when I was little that it was a director that was in charge of all of that, but that's not the case. The producer is the one that has most of that work. And so if the project fell apart, they may be able to accuse the director of having poor shots or whatever, choosing the wrong shots. But ultimately, the teacher put most of that responsibility on me. The director and the writers may have their face tied to it. The actors might have their face tied to it. But the film teacher himself was like, yeah, you should have done better with this. You should have made this work. And if somebody had an issue with the direction or how the actors were directed, yes, they're going to go specifically to the director and say, you're a piss poor director. Because even though I'm the producer, when the audience sees the finished product, they're not going to be thinking, damn, the producer's fault. They're going to look at directly what is tied to the actors directing. If the actors come out and say something stupid to misrepresent all of us, then yes, the actors are going to get clapped.
Who's his stupid nephew as a script consultant. But at the very least, they were in charge of the project for a somewhat significant percentage of the time. So if you are mad about Anthem and we look at the credits, no shit, that's me. But yeah, if you feel like you need to yell at somebody for the way that Anthem is, it's much better to be yelling at someone like me, who was theoretically in charge of the project, or at least in charge of the project for some of the development time, than yelling at someone who was working on the combat or the...
Well, thank you very much for telling everybody else exactly through the chain of command who we should bitch to. The problem with this is that there have been several cases where people lower than the first person in the credits are attacking the consumers who are specifically targeting the studio or corporation itself. There are people who put themselves in the line of sight with the customers when they weren't even part of the discussion, when the customers weren't even looking at them. They didn't even care about them. They didn't know their name. It wasn't an issue. It had nothing to do with them. It wasn't personal. And they decided to make it personal by attacking the audience. So please tell me how we as the consumers are supposed to sit back, shut up, and say absolutely nothing as someone who is going out there and trying to get people banned or banning people off of platforms where they are criticizing the people who are you're saying that we're supposed to criticize. In a perfect world, with good faith, this could work. But you're being quite ignorant and very disingenuous with this because you know damn well this is happening. And if you don't know that this is happening, then maybe you're not the right person to be having this discussion because you clearly are not aware of the moving pieces in the environment of which we're a part of that you're trying to relegate or give advice to. You sound like that woman that came out onto the internet and said,
if you're homeless, just buy a house.
Now she probably meant that as a joke, but that's the vibe that you're giving, bro. Like most of the time when people are having issues with others, it's because of some stupid shit that they said, which usually is about them attacking the audience that was legitimately criticizing the game itself, the writing, or the studio, and not that one individual. It's so funny how a lot of people like this, especially those who are ex-developers, will sit down there and tell the consumers how to consume or how to criticize, but they will not lift a finger or a top lip to instruct their betters or their peers on how to be better businessmen and to be more professional in how they deal with the consumers. Weird. Well, congrats, Pops. You got what you wanted, and now you have a whole bunch of people yelling at you specifically for telling them who to not yell at.
Because again, you don't know exactly what their reality was. When I was an executive producer, I got paid pretty well. And to some degree, from my perspective, some of that compensation was to act as a lightning rod for this negative discourse.
So you're openly admitting that your main purpose, first of all, we can tell that you're paid well because $70 is nothing to you. Second of all, you're openly admitting that you were paid to specifically sit here and spew the crap that you're spewing right now in an attempt to take the accountability off of other people that don't want to have that accountability. So why should we listen to you then? It's like if somebody goes out there and punches someone, their bodyguard is there. So if you want to get revenge on that person and punch them back or defend yourself, the bodyguard's there to say, hey, you can't punch that guy. I'm being paid, so you're going to punch me instead. And then that bodyguard is turning around and saying, turn the other cheek, or yes, if you start something, if you want to fight someone, make sure you can win the fight, but you're not the original person who started it. You're being paid to protect that person. So why should we listen to anything you have to say? And I'm sorry, but not sorry. But if people are out here dogging the consumers, then we're going to clap back. If we're on Reddit saying that we don't like a game or like something about the game and people who are vehemently defending the game start blocking people, or people who worked on the game start lumping all of the audience or people who left bad reviews into a blanket of epithets, and yes, we're gonna clap back at them. I don't care what they worked on or what position they held at the company. If they decided to open their raw, rancid mouths and misrepresent the company and start a fight with the audience, then they're going to catch those verbal hands. And it's very tone deaf of you to come out here and have this message for consumers who are the ones you're supposed to be impressing and valuing, but yet you have none of that smoke for the people in your field. That's interesting. And also because that's what you were trained to do. You were trained to be their little attack dog, and you were trained to be the tank, basically, to draw all of that ire. Hey, blame me, guys. Don't blame the actual people who are being assholes and did something wrong. Just blame me instead. I'm their Jesus. we don't give a fuck. But kudos to Grandpa for at least being honest. But what's also very strange is that this video itself wouldn't have been an issue if we didn't also have your really shitty replies to people. One of those replies being by Bug-Eyed Gorilla, who said $70 doesn't buy you cruelty. Yeah, it doesn't buy me a good game either, apparently. To which you decided to reply, but why are you crawling into someone's personal social media feed to attack them? Bro, at what point did this person say that they crawled onto someone's social media feed to attack them? Unless you're talking about yourself, but then why do you feel attacked? Are you that freaking tenderized that you can't handle people expressing that they don't like something? You literally told people to yell at you if they're upset with you, or if you need someone to yell at. And that's what they're doing, and now you're upset at that, seemingly. Someone replied to that saying, you literally posted on social media, literally opening up the conversation. Now there's one of two things that we can see here. You didn't expect starting a conversation would lead to people you're talking to talk back to you. In which case, you just wanted an echo chamber of self-validation to feel better. But we now see a need to lash out. Sorry. Or two, you're doing this for attention, totally expecting this reaction, and need to feel some form of relevancy in life. Don't want people's opinions as clearly as you are lashing out. Maybe don't speak up. The next person replies to him saying, you feel attacked when people tell you that you're making bad products. Maybe improve your work and quality standards. Your products speak for themselves and people are pointing it out. You should learn from this and not attack the ones who just tell you that your work is bad. Another person added under that, social media by definition is public. And I agree. And as the person underneath that also said, unless you've made your profile private for your friends and family or whatever, the whole idea of social media is to be social. Did people forget that? Now, I agree. People shouldn't harass the developers and go into their inboxes and do all that stuff. But most people aren't doing that. People like you are getting bent out of shape because you're saying that people should criticize and be angry. But don't be angry at this person, though, even though they did something to warrant you being angry at them. Be angry at the game. Don't be angry about these things about the game. Like, who are you to tell us what to be angry over when we're spending our money? And still, the things that you've listed aren't inherently cruel either. Someone even said, you know what? Credit where credit is due. The comment section isn't turned off. To which you replied, this dude replied with, not yet. The very fact that you're replying to everyone with this incendiary victim mentality status tells us everything we need to know about you. Another person said, Obsidian was doing fine until that racist art director opened his mouth and I'm the problem. To which you replied, I can't defend someone who is getting attacked back for their own comments, but this is far from the universal situation. And this is the same kind of comment you left on several people pointing these things out. Here's the thing, as I've, mentioned before, if a studio keeps making bad decisions, mismanaging products or projects, or allowing its workers, employees, what have you, to antagonize the consumers, people have every right to criticize the studio as a whole. Saying you shouldn't be mad unless you know who is responsible. That's a way to deflect the accountability from the larger organization, even though you're telling people that they should take issue with the larger organization. But that's exactly what you're doing. You're preventing them from doing so or trying to discourage them from doing so. The thing is, these people represent this big studio, and the studios and people like you try to do everything to deflect or not come out and reprimand those specific people or take accountability for what their employees have done being representatives of their company. You stay whisper quiet and allow that to continue while they continue representing your companies. They don't apologize, these companies, for these people's or employees' behaviors who are being racist, who are going after the consumers, and that bad reflection affects the company. Now, I understand you can't control what these people say, but if you're working for an organization, you're getting paid by them, and they're defending the game while also picking a fight with the consumers, it makes sense that people would put that person in line or fire them. At that point, I would not give two shits if that person got fired. And I understand why people would celebrate over it, because that's normal. In the case of Obsidian, people weren't mad for no reason. The backlash was a direct response to an art director making racist remarks. Remember this? Right? The Matt Hansen guy, he said, reminder to Black artists out there who are looking for portfolio reviews or job advice. My DMs are open and you will always have my priority. We got too many crusty white dudes in this field. Please let me help you replace me one day. I want to go back to living in the woods. He could have given up his position, by the way. at that moment in time. You could have just given up your position, taken someone under your wing, but you just had to make that comment, first of all, to insult Black people and playing this white savior trope to make them feel as though they need you to get ahead, and you don't even realize how condescending that looks. And also, you're being racist to white dudes by calling them crusty white dudes, and there's too many of them, so somebody else of an opposite skin color is going to take priority over that specifically because of their skin color. Tell me how this is professional. And there's so many of these situations happening, and the companies do absolutely nothing. So when people see this being made on a public platform and they reply to this person, and people like you come out and say, you're being cruel, you shouldn't go after them, you should take issue with the company. I'm sorry, but get fucked. It's why videos like this come across as peak narcissism, to be honest. I'm gonna protect my friends even though I'm wrong. Even if my friends or my peers say something racist, I'm gonna defend them. And then you're out here saying, well, I can't defend someone like this. Why? You never said that, hey, that's wrong. I don't agree with that. You just said I can't defend. You chose those words specifically so that you don't go against people who are doing that because you secretly agree with them, right? If a company allows their employees to insult the customers and push personal agendas or generally act very unprofessionally, then it's not on the consumers to play detective and figure out exactly who made what decision. It's on the company to maintain professionalism. When a studio tolerates this kind of behavior, it's no surprise that people start calling for consequences, including the possibility that the studio itself shouldn't continue to operate. If a business fails to manage its own people and products, then consumers have every right to be upset. And it's ironic how this person is saying, I can't defend someone who's getting attacked back for their own comments, when you're kind of in exactly the same position getting attacked for your own comments while you're also defending the people who deserve criticism in the first place. Interesante. The other thing he replies to is this comment by Crimson Flame, who said, the fact that he's brushing off most of these comments because they come from a streamer whose mindset he doesn't agree with shows how cooked most of these Western companies are. Some of these people are the customer, dude, myself included. I was a massive Dragon Age fan. I didn't harass devs. I didn't celebrate them losing their jobs, but I most certainly didn't care that they lost it. He destroyed one of my favorite series and got paid to do so. I'm more exhausted by this than upset. I'm also tired of seeing these types of videos from people within the industry trying to tell us we're in the wrong when it's you and your colleagues who needs us more than we need you. Exactly, that's what I was saying in one of my last videos. A fact that most of you within the Western gaming industry can't stand to accept. Some of what you say isn't all bad. You aren't being a prick like David Jaffer, or whatever his name is, but you also aren't holding any of your colleagues responsible like most devs. It's always gamers that get blamed, so of course people are fed up by the lack of accountability. And then he, the ex-developer dude, says, not brushing them off, just asking you to engage with the content you are having an issue with, as opposed to just reacting the way you were told to. To which the person below replies to the developer, ex-developer, saying, assuming people are reacting as they have because someone told them to is the core problem, dude. If you honestly think people mindlessly follow orders from someone online, no wonder things go as they have so far. Content creators help viewers find you. Viewers have their own opinions about you. I totally agree with the person who is saying that it's the core problem because it just proves that this person has no idea what the universal truth is. The actual person who posted the video, this old ex-developer, and the only reason he seems to have been motivated to make this video is because some big streamer made a stink about it while ignoring that this has been an issue that consumers have had for many years. You think people just got up one day and is like, yo, because some random streamer was like, you know what, guys? You should be angry about this. Everyone was like, yeah, we should be angry about this. Oh my God, I didn't even think that I was angry before, but now that you said I should be angry, I'm gonna be angry now. Like, what are you on? You clearly haven't been living among the people and you clearly don't know the consumer base anymore. You're not someone who's for the gamers because you don't even understand them and you don't even care to listen. The only time it even matters to you is when someone is big enough to actually have an influence and to give a voice to the people who are being overlooked and whose voices are too small to be noticed. And instead of looking into the issue as to why people are angry and why there's sometimes crossfire with individuals of a company, you decide to just make a blanket lecture from your throne on high as if people care about what you have to say.
If you feel like you're not being listened to when you complain on Metacritic or you complain on the forums of a studio or you complain into the social media channels of the publisher or the studio, be aware that this stuff is carefully scrutinized, not just by the social media teams, also by the teams themselves. arguably, in a lot of cases, to too great of a degree. The team is listening, I would say, often too much to what you are yelling about and complaining about in these channels.
Are they, though? Are they really? I think they're hearing us. And yeah, I think they're listening in on to a degree, but I don't think they care. Saying that they're listening doesn't really mean anything, especially when the reaction we get as a result of them listening is them firing insults at us for daring to criticize their infallible righteousness.
But don't worry, you don't need to go onto their Twitter channel and yell at them directly, because they're going to hear it anyway. Be a human being, have some empathy, and stop being cruel.
He sounds like that bitch that calls herself a comedian.
Supportive and fucking amazing, and you're putting negative, no, fucking look me nuts, you're putting negative fucking energy out here. This is the last show of my fucking, look me the fucking eye. The last show of my fucking weekend is a sold out show, and you want to say mean shit to me, okay? So don't fucking do that.
Ew. You're giving that same type of, hey, I have to pay people to get laid kind of energy. It's ick.
Have some empathy and stop being cruel.
Boy. So let me get this straight. Bear with me here. These people that you're saying people should stop being cruel to, these people have social media platforms that are public and open to the public social environment, and people aren't supposed to go to them directly to engage with them, which is the reason they have the social media platform in the first place. And taking it up directly with them is something that we're not supposed to do, because criticizing them or opening up engagement with them and discourse about something consumers are disgruntled with that they spend their money on is cruel. That's what you define as cruel? No, what's cruel is what you've done to yourself and your reputation by coming on here and making a complete ass out of yourself. What's cruel is you putting yourself in this position where your family is now probably going to be ashamed of you because you've now played yourself. I don't know what you thought was going to happen with this video, but it clearly didn't have the reaction that you thought it was going to have. Maybe that's not the way you meant to phrase it, but that's the way that people are taking it. Be human and have empathy and don't criticize the people who are taking your money and giving you shit. Seems the very opposite of being human and having empathy. It just feels like another pretentious way of saying, hey, eat our slop and like it and don't say anything. And, oh yeah, don't criticize us because we're game developers and we're better than you. So open that mouth, lube up that throat, take our slimy noodles, and take the glaze. That's what you're saying. You wouldn't be what you were if you didn't have the customers buying your product in the first place. So check yourself.
Have some empathy and stop being cruel. Stop throwing a party because a bunch of people lost their jobs. Because you don't know the circumstances that resulted in the thing that you're mad at.
So it's the consumer's fault for rejoicing that a studio got shut down, but it's not the studio's fault for not taking accountability and making sure that they protected their employees by putting out quality products that they expect the consumers to buy. The consumers are the ones that have to carry the moral baggage of the studio getting shut down, but not the studio itself that made all those wrong decisions after many years of the consumers telling them that was going to happen. And I don't know if you've noticed, sir, but this is the internet. Nobody's rejoicing over people losing their jobs. But yeah, if a big company that's putting out shit and is treating its consumers like shit gets shut down, why do you expect us to care? Do you think that because you told people, hey, I don't like that you're doing that, stop doing that, okay? And stop doing that, don't be cruel, is going to make people just stop doing it, especially when the studios have repeatedly and openly have had bad faith with the consumer base and the consumers have told them, hey, could you chill out? And they didn't stop doing. Are you that daft?
People deserve some grace. People deserve some empathy from you. And if you can't provide that, then stay off the internet completely.
People don't deserve dick. The same kind of empathy and grace that you're asking the consumers to extend to these professionals is the same empathy and grace that they have lacked for many years. That they have not given the same. They've not given us the same. But you had dick to say when the consumers were being vilified and mocked while these people were eating up their money. But all of a sudden, the consumers now open up their mouths and it's a problem, right? And it's all, oh, people deserve grace and empathy. First of all, you're talking about grace and empathy on a place called the internet. I think you're the one who should stay off of the internet because you're clearly out of your depth, sir.
Last time for the cheap seats, you are entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to be angry about a game that you bought. You paid good money for it. But try to remember that it's just a game.
You have to be mad. It's just a game. Try to remember that $70 is a lot of fucking money that most people can't afford, especially now. So if they're gonna spend that amount of money on something, they expect to get a good product. You're bitching about all these people who can get jobs and who already got paid up the wazoo for their work, but you don't give a damn about the people who wasted their money on something that, for all intents and purposes, they feel like they got scammed for. It's just a game? $70 ain't just a game. $70 isn't dust. It's not imaginary. And are you giving that same energy to all those people who were trying to use games as activism and getting wholly freaking upset about people enjoying themselves, and because games didn't add certain things inside of them to help to push their activism? Are you getting mad at those people and telling them to chill out, that it's just a game and they shouldn't take it so freaking seriously to try and shove their activism in there? Are you telling them that? No, let me guess. You're only telling the consumers who've only been responding to things like that.
Try to remember that it's just a game. Even more importantly, when you are expressing your complaints, stay away from cruelty, stay away from targeting individual people. Stay away from trying to cause harm. Stay away from celebrating harm done to actual human beings.
And here's where he really contradicts himself. His weird moralizing about not celebrating harm to actual human beings. The actual harm being done was by the studio itself, not the people criticizing it. People weren't celebrating the fact that employees got fired unless they were specific employees that were freaking assholes and were demonizing the people and starting shit with people, trying to get them banned or being racist towards them or whatever. They were celebrating the fact that a company which had been scamming consumers for years finally faced its freaking consequences. If a studio repeatedly puts out broken and unfinished, low-effort games while overcharging and ignoring feedback, it deserves to go under. It deserves to fail. That's not cruelty. That's how the market works. It's how it's always worked. No one forced these companies to continuously screw over their own customers. They did that to themselves. Gramps is completely disconnected from how the gaming industry actually works and how real consumers feel. The real cruelty isn't the consumers criticizing this failing studio. It's the leadership of that studio, people like you, Gramps, that are driving it into the ground with greed, mismanagement, and arrogance, and you're leaving all of your employees or your workers jobless while the executives walk away with millions. You're all cushy, you're all eating good. If anyone is to blame for people losing their jobs, it's the people who had the power to save the company, but repeatedly, for some unknown reason to me, kept choosing not to. Not the people calling out the studio for this.
Express your opinion to the company that made your game. Tell them what you like. Tell them what you don't like. Be specific. It will help you get games that are more like what you want.
Oh my God. Jesus Christ. Why didn't people ever think about that before, Mark? You mean we could have been doing that all along? Wow. Again, this take just proves how disconnected he is from freaking reality, I swear to God. You're saying, oh, tell the company, not the individuals. That completely ignores how businesses actually work. Yeah, companies don't make decisions. The individuals of the companies do. You do realize that, right? People like you, like the people you were showing in the credits that you were showing earlier, the CEOs, the executives, the creative directors, the art leads, the marketing heads, they're the ones steering the ship. You said yourself, hey, I'm at the head of this project, yell at me. You're an individual. The company's just a legal entity. If the people running it don't listen, nothing changes. And if you have proven that you ignore people when they do try to write into the company, then of course they're not going to try the tactic that hasn't been working. They're going to address the people directly that have influence over the freaking company. And if you couldn't catch my sarcasm at the beginning, people have been telling these companies what they don't like for years, años, years, writing reviews. They're voicing their concerns in these forums and Reddit, making videos, sending feedback. None of that has worked because the same people in charge ignore criticism and they keep dismissing fans as, oh, they're toxic. They're toxic. Look how negative they're being. And they keep doubling down on their bad decisions and fighting the consumers for some fucking reason. Now people are getting banned from Reddit discussions and threads when all they do is come out and bring up legitimate issues. They're not even being mean. They're just saying, hey, I'm criticizing this game. They could have done better. I don't like what the CEO is doing here. And then they get banned for that. Then you have the individuals, CEOs, directors, consultants, what have you, who openly insult their audience. Kind of like what you're doing with your condescending, self-righteous lack of awareness take. These are the people calling gamers entitled for wanting a finished product. These are the ones saying, if you don't like it, don't buy it, and then acting shocked when no one buys it. So you say, oh, just tell the company, like it's some freaking revolutionary idea. You're either being willfully ignorant or you're just being really disingenuous, or maybe both. I don't know if that's possible. But people have been doing that. Mark, it hasn't worked. Think, Mark. The only time these companies pretend to care is when backlash is so loud that it threatens the bottom line, which is ironically probably what led you to even make this video, because now people who do have some influence are talking about it, and people are happy they're talking about it because finally someone with a voice that's on par with these conglomerates can get through to them, and somehow that threatens you. Why would it threaten you though, Mark? Bro, we don't come from your day and age. We're just gonna keep on politely sending emails into the void that you'll never read. Nobody really even uses freaking emails anymore. Okay, we do use emails, but who writes emails unless you're for a job or something? Did that work for you back then? Do you really think that if we hadn't been this loud to the point where you caught wind of it because a streamer started talking about it, that there would be any change? Or that the studios would even know what the hell was going on or why people were upset or care? No? Then shut the fuck up. Clearly, the nice and quiet way hasn't been working, and gamers have been ignored for so long to the point where they feel they need to be really loud. Everybody notices this. Why don't you? The problem is maybe back in your time this was the case. But now that everyone has social media platforms, the people of the company are able to act as individuals and come out here and verbally clap the consumers over their freaking heads and start freaking fights with them. So yes, people are naturally going to go after those individuals because they're the ones fucking up the ether. It's not rocket science. Maybe you should get out more or something, or at least know what the hell you're talking about before you come on here and start opening up your freaking mouth.
It will help you get games that are more like what you want. But when you are personally attacking individual devs, you are crossing a line. And you're probably attacking the wrong person.
Again, what the fuck does that mean? Attacking? You seem to swap out that word for criticizing. And if you believe criticism is attacking, I'm sorry. You should stay off the internet. You keep telling people to stay off the internet. You telling people to stay off the internet's wild. Bruh. Anyway, as you can see, I watched the video. I fully watched the video. And I think instead of putting up a sermon on here lecturing people, which is what all these other studios and developers seem to like doing, you should have had some good faith with the audience and actually made a video asking exactly what people are upset about before just assuming and then running to the defense of your fellow developers and then lecturing everybody from on high. I really don't see how you thought making this video about people spending $70 and somehow transitioning it into them needing to only criticize the way you expect them to was going to go over well. You spent nearly $100 on a piss poor product and now you're like going after the CEO and criticizing him? That's freaking cruel. So like, you should think about that. Like, and you know, have some empathy and grace. Did you look over this video before you posted it, bro? Sir? Pops? I know we've all been there before. Trust me. So have I. But bro, you were way too old for this, unless you're really new to the internet. And if that's the case, you're the last person who should be telling people to get off the internet. So anyway, that felt like a waste of time. And we're gonna continue criticizing these developers and studios the way we've been doing it because they cannot hear otherwise. Their ears just freaking fall off and fall into their freaking flaps behind their freaking thighs. You know, what would be cruel is if we stayed quiet. Yeah, we can vote with our wallets. But if we also don't say anything about why we're choosing to not buy their products, that would be cruel, wouldn't it? Actually, no, it wouldn't be. But because we want to see good games and we want to see these studios succeed because we benefit from that too, even though we don't need them, they do need us more than we need them. We're opening up our mouths and telling them as consumers, hey, we'd like this. We like what you're doing. Here's what we like. Give us more of this and we'll give you more money for it. And you see, the thing is, we've even done the quiet thing where we happily decide that we're going to go over and start consuming products from the East or somewhere else, right? And then you have the developers and reviewers and all their little followers here claiming that those games from these other countries are toxic the more popular they get, just because they're giving the gamers what they want. And then you're expecting the gamers to not go batshit and tell you to shut the fuck up and leave them alone. You're expecting them to not go to the personal pages of these people saying these things, and they're not even personal. These are the corporate pages we're talking about, and they're using these pages to freaking attack the gamers and the gaming sphere. You're expecting people to not go over to these places who are saying these things and explain to them the difference between the games they'd rather spend their money on and the ones they end up paying a lot of money for, only to barely get anything of value back. Are you nuts? Seriously, are you nuts? Or is there too much cream in your nuts? I know it sounds weird, but seriously, I don't know what this whole video, why he felt the need to make this. I think he probably thought he was being righteous, and he's like, I must do something. I must save my fellow people. And it just came out, now you are a lightning rod. So, If that's what you said your job is, then kindly be quiet and do your job and get shocked. Why are you even talking back? Lightning rods don't talk back. They just take it. So take it, Pops, and leave us the fuck alone.